Hey everybody, welcome to 20Q, 20 questions with interesting people, where we learn the origin stories of everyday superheroes in the LGBT community and friends. I am your host, the very handsome Tim Kirk, and our guest this time is raconteur, bon vivant, and man about town, John Kearns. John is the author of the short story collection Dreams and Dull Realities and the novel The World, and playwright of dramas including In the Wilderness and Boann and the Well of Wisdom. His new novel, Worlds, was published by Boann Books and Media, LLC in May 2020. Worlds was a finalist in the 2018 William Faulkner William Wisdom Creative Writing Competition and the 2002 New Century Writers Awards. John's fiction has appeared in the Medulla Review, Danse Macabre, and the Irish Echo. His poems have appeared in such journals as North American Review, the Grey Sparrow Journal, and the Razor's Wine. His play, Sons of Molly Maguire, was produced in Dublin's Liberty Hall in May 2017. John was the Treasurer and Salon Producer for Irish American writers and artists for 7 years. He has a master's degree in Irish literature from the Catholic University of America. So we're going to start as we usually do, John. Hi, John.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me. This is great.
My pleasure. We're going to start, as I always do, a first question, a bit about your background. Where are you originally from, and what was it like?
I grew up in the Philadelphia area, just right outside of West Philadelphia, in like Upper Darby and Havertown area. It was a middle class background. Catholic schools. I went to all Catholic schools from kindergarten through, as you said, mentioned all the way through graduate school. I went to St. Joe's Prep and St. Joe's University, both Jesuit schools in Philadelphia. So yeah, it was a great place to grow up, and I got a great education, I think, from the Catholic schools and from the Jesuit high school and college.
Jesuits and renegade Catholics, you know about that. I went to Fordham, and I went to Chaminade High School in Mineola, which is run by the Marianites, Society of Mary, and so I'm steeped in all this stuff as well. So based on that part of your background, what life experience would you say had the greatest impact on you?
I think when after I graduated from college, I did kind of a crazy thing. I just kind of packed up and moved in with my friend in the Bronx. And a lot of people were asking, in those days, it was New York was pretty dangerous at that time, and and I didn't really have a plan. It was just sort of like, I'm just going to go to the Bronx, go to New York City, and become a writer. So probably that was the biggest thing, was just, it's just kind of dedicated myself for that, and ended up getting a job as a school teacher. And I worked as a school teacher and a proofreader, and eventually went back to graduate school, and then came back to New York and worked as a technical writer.
Wow, where'd you live in the Bronx?
I lived in Little Italy in the Bronx on Belmont Avenue.
Yeah. I lived on the corner of Hoffman and East 189th Street.
Oh, really? Yeah, I lived on Belmont Avenue, and then I lived on 187th Street.
Wow, you had some excellent pizza there, man. I gotta say. And I've been
it was great food in that neighborhood.
So, because of your illustrious success, what would you say to anyone interested in an aspect of your experience? Meaning, if someone wanted to explore an idea or prospective opportunity based on what you could tell them, what would be the main thing to encourage or discourage them?
Well, I mean, sometimes a lot of people ask me about writing and how do you get started on writing and things like that. So I just feel like it's just a matter of sort of forcing yourself to sit down, making it part of your routine. And I think write as if, like, a lot of the stuff that you're going to write will probably be thrown away anyway. Just take any pressure off of yourself so you can write rough drafts, and just sort of, once you get the ideas kind of down on paper, then you can kind of edit them and refine them as you go. But I think the idea is just to keep it part of your routine, and to take the pressure off yourself. You don't feel like every word you write down has to be perfect. I mean, just if you go in with the expectation that a lot of it is going to be thrown out anyway, it frees you up to kind of just sort of let your imagination flow and let the words flow, and you end up actually keeping a lot more than you might expect anyway, in the end. And I think when I was younger, I think sometimes I used to think that, oh, a half hour, an hour is not enough time. I really need more. But you find that like the other, if you only have an hour a day, the other 23 hours of the day, your brain is preparing for that.
Yeah.
So you sit down for that hour and just stuff comes out that you weren't expecting.
Because you've had so many awards and you've done so many things, and I'm really so I'm just so thrilled about the Molly Maguires just being produced in Ireland. You know, I think that's cool. But what would you say is your most noteworthy achievement?
Well, that was certainly one, and that was quite a thrill. I mean, that was amazing to be able to have it produced in that historic building where James Connolly, started his publications, and where so much labor history in Ireland took place. But I think probably the biggest one is the novel that I just finished and published, because that was something that took. I probably had the idea about 20 years ago and worked on it on and off, and then probably the last 8 years or so I worked on it steadily. So I think finally getting that finished and published is probably the biggest accomplishment, because it's kind of a long work. It's about 4 generations of an Irish American family, and it's unusual in the sense that it doesn't tell the story in chronological order. It has 7 chapters organized by the 7 deadly sins and 7 lively virtues. So yeah, it was a lot of work, and a lot of it involved the Irish American Writers and Artists Salon. I would read pieces of it. I would polish it up in order to read it, then read it out loud, and then polish it some more, and it sort of went through a lot of iterations before it was finally in the form where it was ready to be published.
I think you had read. You did read something out loud to me at 5 Times Square. I don't know if that was part of that. Was that the short story you were working on?
Oh, really?
Yeah. You just happened to be writing something, and you happen to have written something, and you just read to me like a page or two of what you wrote. So that was
probably was, yeah, because I was working on that a lot in those days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what do you want to be better at?
Like I said, I'd like to be better at languages. I mean, I know it's sort of like studied a bunch of different languages, and I had a smattering of. I can understand some. Like my wife is Chinese, and I understand a lot of Chinese when I hear people speaking around me. But would love to be better at it and more fluent. And same thing with Irish. I mean, I'd like to learn Irish better. To really to be fluent in some language. I mean, I kind of know a bunch of stuff, and it can understand talk around me, but I'm not that great at speaking. So I would like to be better at that, and I also like to be better at the guitar. I play a lot of rhythm guitar. Right now, I'm learning to play more notes and melodies and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess I'd like to. I mean, I've kind of been sort of a self-taught guitar player, so I'd like to. I mean, I actually started to take lessons just 2 weeks ago. So just trying to learn, refine my knowledge of that and just keep improving. So yeah, I think languages and more general knowledge and basic knowledge about guitar and music and playing melodies rather than just rhythm all the time.
Well, that's really cool. What would you say was the biggest personal challenge you have faced? A personal injury, a seemingly overwhelming task, a personal or professional goal, a difficult situation you had to overcome?
Well, I think it actually it's related to what we were just talking about. I mean, I think one of the biggest professional goals was what I would love to do is be able to, do the creative writing for a living. I mean, I do enjoy my day job. I work as a technical writer, as you know, but it'd be nice to have more time to devote to creative writing, and that's sort of one thing that kind of mainstream success where you can do this for a living would be amazing. But at that point, but as someone I knew, another writer that I know compared it to becoming an astronaut. I mean, there's very few people that can actually make a living as a novelist. So unless you're writing pulp fiction or something like that, but. So that's one thing. I guess other challenges I had in my life when I was in high school and college, my mother went through a lot of issues. She had diabetes and she suffered from depression, so she was in and out of the hospital a lot. So that was kind of a difficult time through especially my college years.
Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, that's interesting. So how do you think that shaped you a little? Do you think that changed the way your perspective, or help formulate a different understanding of people, or just something else, like in that facet of human nature that other people might not be familiar with? You think that may have had an impact and help formulate the way you think and write and perceive?
I think so too. Yeah, I think I think when you go through suffering yourself, or you have suffering in your family, I mean, you tend to hopefully become more sensitive to other people's suffering. And kind of understand, uh, that people have different issues and people are coming from different perspectives, and so uh, I think it makes you a little more sympathetic to other people. I think that helped happen with me. I think I was on this path going to prep school, and I was kind of like a scholar athlete, and in this kind of competitive environment. And I think through those years, I just became a little bit uh, more sensitive, and also looking at things from a bigger perspective. If you have some reflection on yourself and your life, then you can kind of hopefully become sensitive to other people's pain as well. So I think if you're introspective at all, and and have some sensitivity, then you do become more empathetic to other people when you go through some issues yourself.
So, what would you say was the transformational moment in your life? A meaningful gift, a reason to belong to something, being a parent, good job, bad job?
I think I think when I had my first play on stage, that probably made a big difference in my life, because it was in, I guess, 1999, 2000. So that was sort of the beginning of my more. I had always been a writer since I was sort of 16, writing pretty consistently. But this was sort of like uh, a more public facing, sort of like where I actually had play. I wrote something that was actually on stage, and then that began a process. I had a whole bunch of plays for the next 10 years or so, um, and then I got involved in doing readings and producing the Irish American Writers and Artists Salon. So it was much more presenting work in public. Uh, the last, I guess, 20 years now. Um, that was sort of the beginning of that, around 1999. It was a one act play, and then that sort of became the whole process of just presenting my work to an audience, which was great.
Did you do this in high school at all, or the college, or did you do it in workshop or anything? Or took you until 20 years ago to get this going?
To get involved in theater?
Well, actually, were you writing stuff that what people were doing when you were in school, or until after you graduated, had your master's? Did you start to produce these things?
Yeah, I didn't really produce. I mean, I was writing. I wrote a lot of short stories. I wrote, and I was working on a novel for a long time. So I was writing, but it was more of a private thing. I mean, I'd send short stories out to magazines, and once in a while get something published. But it was a difficult process. So yeah, that was like around 1999 was sort of the beginning of when I started presenting work in public.
So
I wasn't involved in theater in high school or in college. I actually acted in two one act plays.
Really?
But that was the extent.
Okay.
That was.
So what drives you? What gets you up in the morning?
I guess having new experiences, and and the drive to creativity, and to I think I like to achieve things during the day for my day job, and I also like to have the opportunity to create something new, to look forward, as I said, and make the writing part of my routine. So do the creative writing as well, to start to try to release my creativity, come up with something new, add something new to a project that I'm working on. I usually have some long-term project going on, so I'm just kind of adding to it little by little, like a novel or a play or something like that. So yeah, that keeps me going. Just keep making progress.
Just out of curiosity, when you start something, do you tend to stick with the basic premise, or do you like scrap that and just take some aspects of it that you may find to be that workable someplace else, or do you try to like just evolve what you do? Do you find that that's more? Does it go more one way or the other? You just evolve from a basic premise, or do you take things and incorporate them into something else?
I mean, it's part of me that wants to hold on to the original idea as much as possible. But I think, yeah, as you work on something over the years, it starts to develop and change. And yeah, and I think that's one thing I've learned actually as I've gotten a little bit older, just to not force something into the next phase and not make it into something like you've done before. Like to sort of give it time, like let something develop on its own and let it give it time to become whatever it is it's going to become, rather than say, oh, well, we could make this ending like this, or because then it starts to become something conventional. So I'd like to kind of let it develop on its own. If it does, it takes on a life of its own. It turns out to be, a good bit different than what you originally conceived.
Uh, what's the first thing you want to come to people's minds when they think of you?
I guess writer. I mean, that's what mainly. I mean, that's what I've been talking about the whole time. It seems like, but yeah, I think I'd like people to think of me as a writer. As I work as a technical writer, I do playwriting and novel writing and short story, and I've done some songwriting. I've done all different types of things. But yeah, it seems like writing seems to be my main thing and my identity.
Yes, and I'll say you're a good musician.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I did play, and actually before I did the plays and stuff, that was one thing I used to write songs, and I played at some coffee houses in college and things like that. So I did try to present some work in public then, but nothing theatrical.
So I get to the last of my 10 questions, and this is the one that I think I've gotten so many different responses from people, and virtually there's some similarities, but virtually everybody has something distinct to say. So the last question is the threshold. How did you know when you were in that? The threshold is the point of no return. The wall has been closed, locked, sealed up, and painted over behind you. There's nothing you can see. You're not going back. How did you know when you arrived there? How did it feel to cross it? What was the significance to you, and what did you leave behind? What are you glad you left behind, and what do you regret leaving behind?
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess when I first moved to the Bronx, I moved away from home. I guess that was the I left behind my family and friends, my whole the whole environment that I had grown up with. I had kind of a comfortable suburban life, and then moved into kind of I mean, it was Little Italy, the Bronx, so it was the safest neighborhood in America at the time, but because of the disorganized crime was not allowed, but. So yeah, so I left behind a lot of things, but also it gave me a new sort of freedom and whole different types of, all kinds of different types of new experiences. Living in the city, living in an Italian neighborhood, and then working as a teacher in the South Bronx, and just sort of being there for a purpose. So where I in my own mind, I was like I had moved there to become a writer, so that I couldn't say, well. I'm not going to really do that anymore. It was sort of like I committed myself to becoming a writer, and living in New York City, and it was a very intense experience, an intense couple of years, but it taught me a lot. And I think it was really the threshold from again from going from my parents' house to living on my own. So it was sort of like being independent and taking care of yourself, and getting a job, and paying the bills and all that kind of stuff. Those are all new experiences as well.
Now I know Malachi McCourt.
Yes.
Did you know Frank?
No, actually never met. I mean, I was kind of in the same room with him a couple times, but I never really met him.
I figured because both New York City school teachers, both Irish, you have a lot in common.
Yeah, it's a shame. I know. I never really knew him before he passed away.
No, that's too bad. Well,
I knew Malachi and Alfie as well. I mean,
I didn't know there's another brother, Alfie. I'm sure has a big family.
Yeah, Alfie passed away a few years ago, but yeah, he was another one. He was a great character as well. He wrote a couple books, wrote some poetry, and he owned some restaurants and things like that. He and Malachi actually did a reading of From Angela's Ashes.
Really?
It went before and then he passed away a couple of days later.
What would you do all over again?
Yeah, I thought about this one. I think I would do all of it over again. I don't think I'm not the kind of person who just kind of has a lot of regrets and says, "Well, I wish I had done this. I wish I'd done that." I feel like I try to approach decisions in a methodical way and try to make the right decision. And I think afterwards I just live with it. I think that all the experiences I've had have kind of made me what I am today. So I don't really think there's anything I would not do over again. So I just think, yeah, I think I would do it all over again. I mean, the good things and the bad things.
So, hobbies, avocations, pastimes?
Well, I like to play guitar, as you know. I like fishing too. I've been doing actually the last couple of days. I've been doing some surf fishing. So I enjoy going down to the beach and fishing in the even if I don't catch anything, it's fun to splash around in the waves and stuff.
Where do you go fish?
I'm right now. I'm in Brigantine, New Jersey. So I'm a couple blocks away from the beach. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because nobody else in my family is into fishing at all. And it's just I don't know how I get into it and why, I enjoy it so much. But yeah, it's just been since I was a little kid. I was just been fascinated by it. Especially fish. I mean, I do some freshwater fishing, especially fishing in the ocean. I guess it's just kind of it's mysterious. You don't know what you're gonna catch.
I lived down at the beach for years, and I've always loved the perspective you get down there, and there's a little bit of zen there for me too. So I can see that being something very very relaxing. That's a big battery recharger for me.
Yeah.
So what's the very last thing you want people to think about you when they think of you?
I think I would not want to be thought of as cheap. I don't want people to say, "Hey, there goes that cheap bastard." I'd rather just about anything else than that. I don't think people would, but yeah, think I like to be generous. I wouldn't want to be thought of as someone who's a tightwad or something like that.
Is there anything in your life you cannot live without?
Yeah, I'd say writing. And writing. I know I keep answering the same. I feel like I give the same answer to a lot of these questions, but yeah, I think writing is something. It's been part of my life since I was 16, and even before that. And so it's part of my routine. It's part of my sort of my reason for existence in a sense. And so I don't think I could live without that. I think it's funny to hear about people who quit or try to write and they quit, but to me it's not. It's just who I am. It's what I do, and I don't think I could ever not do it.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely. You are particularly fussy about.
I'm fussy about noises, sounds. Like people make a lot of noise when they eat. People chewing gum and things like that. There's certain sounds that kind of just drive me crazy. People cracking gum on the subway or something. I'd have to move to another car. It just seems, I don't know, for whatever reason, there's certain sounds that bother me.
So, what is your abiding passion? What you care about most?
Well, I guess, like I said, as I said, I mean, writing is sort of my abiding passion. I also have a big passion for Ireland and Irish culture, things like that. As you know, I've been involved in the Irish American writers and artists and in the Irish community in New York. So, and it's always just since I was a teenager, I've just loved reading about Ireland, reading about the history, the literature, the culture. I'm even learning to play the music. I know a little bit of the language, but not as well as I would like to.
So, if you could throw it all away and be a rock star, astronaut, movie star, firefighter, bartender in paradise, what would you be? And why?
I think rock star. It's funny because you hear all these songs that rock stars write about, complaining about living in hotels and their crazy life and everything. But I feel like in some ways that would suit me. I would, to be up all night and sleep during the day and just traveling around all over the place. I think I could live that kind of lifestyle. But I'd probably be dead by now if I if I had done it. But yeah, I do love music, and I love play guitar and write some songs myself. Uh, yeah, I guess if out of those choices, I'd probably choose that. But again, I don't know how practical that would be.
Is there anything you struggle with you wish you did not?
I think, like I said, I think I struggle with like reading music and things like that. I mean, I play, I'm sort of, as I said, I'm a self-taught guitar player, so I kind of play rhythm. I play a lot of chords, but I don't really know how to read music, and I've tried sometimes over the years. And now, as I said, I just started now. I'm learning to play using tabs, but tablature, but I don't really know how to. So I'd like to be better at that. I mean, it's something that I don't know why. And maybe because it's mathematical. I'm not really great at math. I'm more of a word person. So somehow, but I'm working on it. I'm getting better at playing and looking at tabs at least. So maybe the next step will be actually to be able to read music and play the notes that I'm looking at.
So that's the end of our 20 questions, and I thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Is there any parting words you'd like to express to listeners?
No, just thank you for having me. And as I said at the beginning, I have a new novel called Worlds that was just published in May. So you can look it up on Amazon or Lulu.com and check it out. It's four generations of an Irish family, and I think it's got some interesting stuff in there.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, John. Thanks for listening. See you next time. And as the kiddies say, peace out.